Hello, I'm Bob Junkie, the founder and CEO of Adventase. The topic of today's video is pipeline management, a critical health checkup. Not atypically, if you take a look at a seller's and consequently an organization's revenue over the course of a year, you'll see peaks at the end of each quarter with a substantial peak at the end of the fourth quarter. This is commonly referred to as the roller coaster ride, which is very much in line with stress levels throughout the sales operation. This is, of course, due to the fact that sellers are trying to do everything they can to achieve quarterly and annual quota objectives, including unnatural acts to close business prematurely. And unfortunately, at the start of each new quarter, and especially the new year, pipelines are barren, and people are therefore doomed to repeat this pattern. Many other issues, such as sales execs having to explain the lack of predictability in the business and seller turnover, are the consequences. So, the purpose of today's video is to show you how sales pipeline management will resolve these issues, and we'll do so by reviewing the following topics. First, we'll discuss the importance of what I like to call no wiggle room, well-defined opportunity stages, which are the foundation to accurate pipeline management. Because we've seen a number of misconceptions about what pipeline management really is, we'll clearly define it. Then we'll get into the heart of today's video with the analysis of two key metrics: the pipeline balance algorithm and ideal pipeline analyzer. Along with that, we'll review these metrics for 3 salespeople and demonstrate how to identify and rectify gaps. Finally, we'll show you how this analysis translates its way up the entire sales operation. So, for today's purposes, let's review only the key stages an opportunity goes through as it marches its way toward a win. We'll begin with the C opportunity, or candidate stage. C opportunities are important in pipeline management because they're the result of successful lead generation activities. It will be important to us in pipeline management because we'll determine how many C prospects we should generate on a monthly basis to fill the pipeline. Think of a B prospect as being bad because although the seller has moved a C prospect forward by completing a sales call where the buyer admitted a critical business issue and has a solution in their mind to that issue, the seller has in fact called too low, i.e. they are below the power line. This creates many add-on problems. The A prospect is very important because the seller has a buyer who's above the power line, and they've admitted a critical business issue. Further, they have a vision of a solution, and they've agreed to a sequence of events or action plan which will lead to a decision. A prospects are essential for pipeline management because they're an excellent predictor of dollars win, i.e. quota achievement. The A prospect ultimately becomes a near win, where we've secured verbal approval, or a near loss, where unfortunately we may have gone through a long sales cycle only to discover that we've misqualified the opportunity. It's a costly path to take and one that we want to eliminate. So here's the overall flow through the stages. Note that there are 2 paths sellers can take to get to that all-important A prospect. And the path of least resistance is to prospect high enough to go directly from C to A. The C to B path should be minimized because of the difficulties some sellers have in gaining access to power. This is in fact why many sellers and ultimately sales operations fail to achieve their overall goals. So it's important for executives and managers to make sure that organizationally they're following the correct processes and using the correct metrics to take that direct route. And I hope you'll agree that these stages are not only unambiguous, but they're based on key elements completed with key buyers. They don't, for example, incent sellers to submit loser proposals. So now let's review a few important definitions related to sales pipeline management. Whereas the forecast provides a relatively short-term view of revenue expectations, the sales pipeline provides a longer-term view of the health of the entire business. It summarizes all qualified opportunities by stage, and that means going from the earliest stages of qualification to the latest stages of qualification. And that takes us to sales pipeline management. The goals of sales pipeline management are to make sure that we're achieving continuous pipeline balance, and that means beginning each quarter and each new year with a full pipeline in order to ensure quota achievement. We'll do that by establishing pipeline balance requirements by seller, monitoring the pipeline against requirements, and then, where we find gaps, coming up with the correct surgical plan to rectify those gaps. The two metrics that we'll review are the pipeline balance algorithm and ideal pipeline analyzer. The purpose of the pipeline balance algorithm, or PBA, is to help sellers maintain a continuously balanced pipeline, and what I mean by that is 24/7/365. It's designed to ensure continuous pipeline balance. In so doing, when a month, quarter, or year ends, and irrespective of whether or not the seller has made their numbers for that particular period, it ensures that the seller enters the next period with a fully loaded pipeline. The Ideal Pipeline Analyzer takes a deeper dive by analyzing every relevant stage. It enables us to identify and rectify gaps now on a per-stage basis. So we'll start with input parameters specific to a seller. Those parameters include the seller's quota, their average deal size, the probability of closing a C prospect, which is 10%, the probability of closing an A prospect, which is 50%, and the average length of the sales cycle. From those input parameters, we'll determine that seller's pipeline balance algorithm. Finally, we'll determine that seller's ideal pipeline. So, okay, let's take a look at the input parameters for our analysis. And here are those parameters that we'll use for our sample sellers. Each seller will have a quota of $2.4 million. They have an average deal size of $400K. As we've noted earlier, the probability of closing a C is 10%. The probability of closing an A is 50%, and the average length of a sales cycle is 4 months. And with that, let's analyze the pipeline balance algorithm. Here's how the PBA works. Looking at our sales pipeline, the concept is that coming out of the bottom of the funnel, we want a consistent number of wins with sufficient value to achieve quota as represented by dollars win. The PBA works to ensure this via its two key components. The first component is the value in dollars or any other currency of the A pipeline. Why the A pipeline? Well, if you think about how we clearly defined an A prospect with a 50% probability of becoming a win, the A pipeline becomes an excellent predictor of dollars win. Therefore, managers calculate the financial value of each of their sellers' A pipelines. The second component is the number of new opportunities created, or knocks, each month. And that number is designed to help us achieve and maintain the A pipeline. Then, consequently, if there's a gap in the A pipeline, you can determine how many additional knocks, or new opportunities, are needed for the upcoming month to alleviate the A gap as quickly as possible. If managed closely, most gaps can in fact be eliminated in only 1 month. And note that the real end game of the PBA is to achieve dollars A at all times because it is in fact an excellent predictor of dollars win. The net result is that if a seller achieves their $A goal, they'll also achieve their $win goal, and in so doing, achieve continuous pipeline balance. And this will eliminate that roller coaster pattern that we talked about earlier. So now, let's pretend that we're a sales manager and let's analyze the PBAs for 3 sellers. Note in the upper left-hand corner that each seller needs to create 10 new opportunities each month to generate and maintain a $1.6 million A pipeline. And now let's look at a PBA table with actuals for 3 salespeople. Let's look at Kathy first. Those 11 knocks will generate an ongoing A pipeline, and her A pipeline already looks great. Conclusion, she's in great shape. Kathy, just keep doing what you're doing. In looking at Tom, great A pipeline, right? But what's the however? Well, the however is no prospecting, 0 knocks. Is it because he's only working that large $2.4 million deal? And of course, we want him to do that, but it should not be the only opportunity he works on. He's a potential elephant hunter. Tom may love big game hunting, and our next metric, the ideal pipeline analyzer, will tell us that for sure. In the meantime, though, Tom, next month, we want you to generate 12 to 15 knocks to restore balance across your pipeline. Finally, let's look at Dan. Dan is behind on his knocks and also has a low A pipeline. So next month, to restore balance, while working those A prospects, Dan, we'd like you to generate a minimum of 15 knocks to build the A pipeline back to standard. Okay, so now let's look at the ideal pipeline analyzer by stage. We'll look at ideal goal versus actual and make appropriate recommendations. Note the upper left-hand corner. It's the 30th of June, so the year is exactly halfway completed. And since each seller has a $2.4 million quota, their wins year to date should be $1.2 million. So now let's conduct a deeper analysis of those same 3 salespeople. Here are the stages that we'll analyze, from a C all the way through wins both month to date and year to date booked. And note that each stage gives us an excellent view into the skill capabilities of a seller. Note too that depending on the stage being analyzed, we'll look at the number of opportunities and or the dollar value in each stage. For each seller, we'll look at the new opportunities created during the month and also the total at month end. So diving into our analysis of Kathy's pipeline, she created 11 new opportunities, indicating that she can generate leads and she's fearless when it comes to prospecting. I wouldn't worry about the 1B prospect as long as she can convert it to an A. We already know she has an excellent A pipeline. And she's moving prospects to near win and is in good shape already on her wins. Conclusion? She's an eagle. Great job. Our high watermark, in fact. So Kathy, keep doing what you're doing. On to Tom. Tom. Zeros, goose eggs throughout his new pipeline. And that one $2.4 million deal, this confirms he's an elephant hunter. How many elephant hunters close the big deal, stare at now a horrible pipeline, and then instead of rebuilding their pipeline, they leave the company to get a draw with a new company? Well, we don't want to lose Tom, nor have him hurt the team later. So let's exercise some tough love now. Tom, while you're working the A prospect, we expect a minimum of 12 to 15 knocks next month. Move those C's, and convert those Bs to As in 30 days. That 30-day rule is an important one, because if you have a B prospect who's below the power line, by definition, that B prospect should agree to give the seller access to power within 30 days if they really are serious about solving that critical business issue. If they're not serious, it will go beyond 30 days. Let's finish with our analysis of Dan. The bottom half of his pipeline looks bad, particularly with the 3 near losses. He's wasting a lot of time on opportunities that he cannot win. So there's a red flag, a major red flag. And looking at the top of the pipeline, it looks like he spent the month generating some new prospects while working a number of old B prospects. An important metric is the A to B ratio. And if we look at the number of A's over the number of B's for Dan, it's 1/6. That is not good at all. An optimal pipeline should be almost the inverse, 4/1. So next month, we'll need to help him with 3 things. 1, prospect high. And I don't mean this as a reference to drug use. I mean prospect above the power line. 2, convert those Bs in 30 days, that 30-day rule again. And 3, looking at all those opportunities stuck at the B stage, make sure we role play with him to ensure he's able to qualify better to gain access to power. And by the way, as a result, he'll probably no longer generate those near losses. Now, let's look at company-wide pipeline management. If we calculate the PBA and ideal pipeline for each salesperson, they summarize up the organization to the VP of sales. So literally, every manager and the VP of sales, him or herself, can have a PBA and ideal pipeline analyzer. Importantly, this puts management in a position where they can easily and confidently determine gaps anywhere in the organization that can be proactively rectified early. Before I close, I'd like to let you know that you can test drive this system. Give me a call or send me an email for details. So thank you very much, and we hope this video helps you with your pipeline management.